Good morning. My name is Lou Costello, Vice Chairperson of the University of Pittsburgh Board of Trustees. Board Chairperson Tom Richards could not be with us today and has delegated authority to me to chair today's meeting, and I am very honored to do so. On behalf of Chairperson Richards, I would like to welcome everyone to the fall meeting of the board. The virtual meeting has been duly advertised as a public meeting in accordance with the Sunshine Act and is therefore open to members of the public as observers. This meeting is being streamed on the university's YouTube channel and is also being recorded. The recording, the recording will later be made available via the Board of Trustees website. A quorum is present for the transaction of business. Participation in the meeting is limited to members of the board and those individuals the board is invited to, in advance to take part. I would like to acknowledge and welcome our ex officio trustees or their designees in attendance. Dr. Tanya I. Garcia, who is Deputy Secretary and Commissioner for Post-Secondary and Higher Education for the Pennsylvania Department of Education and is the designee of the Secretary of Education, Noe Ortega. County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, who is an ex officio trustee, and Representative Dan Frankel, who is Governor Wolf's designee on the board. I would also like to welcome 3 new trustees voted in at our annual meeting who are in attendance for the first meeting today. Welcome to Majdi Abulaban, Deborah Sen, and Brian Selesky. We are pleased that you can be here today and look forward to your contributions as members of the board. Sadly, since the annual meeting, we lost former alumnus and trustee Frederick S. Humphreys. Dr. Humphreys graduated from the university in 1964, receiving a PhD in physical chemistry, and served as a member of the board, including on both the budget and executive committees from 1992 to 1996. Dr. Humphreys was a renowned leader, scholar, and public servant, having served as the 8th president of Florida A&M University, 4th president of Tennessee State University, and president and CEO of the National Association for Equal Opportunity in Higher Education. Dr. Humphreys was respected throughout the United States and internationally for his keen insights on the education of Black and other underrepresented students, particularly in math and the natural sciences, and his unique and visionary approaches to producing successful educational outcomes. Dr. Humphreys will be greatly missed. Several trustees have also lost family members, as have many members of our Pitt and local community. On behalf of the board, I would like to offer my condolences to all of those who have recently lost loved ones. Please join me in a moment of silence to remember Dr. Humphreys and our lost Pitt local community members. Thank you. Now, the minutes of the board's annual meeting on June 25th, 2021 were distributed to you in advance of today's meeting and are found in the meeting materials. Are there any corrections? May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The minutes of the annual board of the trustees meeting on June 25th, 2021, as circulated, are hereby approved. Okay, the fall meeting of the board includes an annual report from the Pitt Alumni Association. The board has very close affiliation with the Alumni Association. In fact, more than half of our trustees are alumni of the university. I would like to introduce the current president of the Pitt Alumni Association, Valerie Enjai. At age 20, Val graduated from Pitt with a degree in elementary education and began her career as a teacher in Illinois. Throughout her career, Val has worked tirelessly to transform lives and create opportunities for people who have been disenfranchised. After working across the United States and in West Africa, Val returned to Pittsburgh, where she served as executive director and senior vice president at the Bidwell Training Center, a position she held for 37 years until her retirement in 2018. Val has had a number of leadership roles with the Pitt Alumni Association, including playing a vital role within the African American Alumni Council. She has been honored for her work with the PAA Volunteer Excellence Award and the African American Alumni Council Blue and Gold and Black Colors of Celebration Leadership Award. Some of you will recognize Val from her report last year, and we're delighted to have her again. So Val, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me once again to give an update on the Pitt Alumni Association. I have been on the board since 2010 and just began my second year as president of the Pitt Alumni Association Board of Directors. I want to take a quick moment to thank our leadership team, Nancy Merrick, Rich Sidori, president-elect, and Lisa Golden, past president, and the hardworking members of our board who have offered their leadership and support and made my first year as president a memorable one. And now I'm pleased to share highlights of the past year, including how the PAA has continued to engage our alumni through turbulent times. I'm also excited to talk about where the PAA will be going in the future. Our Pitt Alumni Association board members are dedicated volunteer leaders who work to advance Pitt's mission and strive to enrich the lives of current and future Pitt alumni. We have nearly doubled the size of our board from just a few years ago, allowing us to have a greater impact and also to include more diverse voices and new ideas. It's this diversity of our alumni board that enables us to serve as representatives of our overall alumni population, now more than 342,000 strong. Every school, college, and regional campus is represented by our membership, and members span different generations and geographic regions. Beyond our service in an advisory capacity to the PAA, board members actively engage with alumni and show support for Pitt. Last year, 88% of our members made an annual gift to the University of Pittsburgh, and we expect to reach our goal of 100% participation this fiscal year. Many of you have heard me use these words before, and for very good reason. These words not only describe our ideal at the PAA, but they also represent what our Pitt alumni expect us to be: innovative, impactful, visionary, and fun. The circumstances of the past 18 months have challenged us to find new, creative ways of meeting these expectations and creating meaningful relationships with our alumni. One of the ways we have stayed connected with our alumni is through content-driven programming. These online opportunities help to broaden perspectives and ignite conversations across the entire Pitt community at a time when many of us were seeking interaction with peers. You can see 3 of our programs highlighted here. PAA Presents launched in November as a way of bringing our schools and colleges together around common expertise. The goal is to showcase our alumni, faculty, and programs, particularly that cut across disciplines or are unique to Pitt. Over the past year, we've heard from experts in entrepreneurship, global data security, student startups, and housing and development. The Deliberative Dialogue series promotes constructive conversations around difficult topics, like health inequity, activism, and women in the workplace. Each presentation focuses on the underserved population so that we bring awareness to the variety of experiences across the Pitt alumni community. Finally, our alumni affinity networks have worked diligently to create programming that speaks to their members. In January, the Muslim Alumni Network hosted a 2-day conference on women in leadership. It was well attended and offered valuable insights from underrepresented populations. By far, our most ambitious project this year was Pitt Perspectives, a series of videos and panel discussions that allow world-renowned Pitt alumni and experts to weigh in on some of the world's most pressing challenges. It allowed us to bring our alumni onto campus and into our classrooms and laboratories to see how we're addressing these issues firsthand. Not surprisingly, we kicked off the series by taking a deep dive into issues around the global pandemic. We explored how Pitt leaders kept our campuses safe and functional, how our researchers pursued life-saving preventions and treatments, and how our alumni fearlessly served their communities on the front lines. A second series on the future of work explored post-pandemic job trends through 2 panel discussions and a video. We'll continue Pitt Perspectives later this fall with a series on creating an inclusive community. One of the most important functions over the past year has been to provide some levity and a sense of community for our alumni. Our regional chapters are the heart of this, gathering their members safely for events and keeping that lifelong link to our university strong and healthy. If you take a look at that amazing photograph, that's our Denver chapter at the 6th annual 14er hike. They climbed Mount Huron, and for the first time, 100% of the participants made it to the summit. It's such a great example of the unique ways our chapters build community. To ensure that all of our affiliated alumni groups have the support they need in order to do meaningful engagement, we convened a regional chapters task force last year. The group was charged with helping the PAA develop standards and guidelines for our regional affiliates. These guidelines provide our alumni with the structure and support they have been asking for, while also allowing the PAA to have more consistent oversight of operations. I hope you see common threads emerging as you learn about our past year of programming. We believe and have reflected that this is our strategic plan, that our priorities must be enriching the lives of alumni and students, strengthening the Pitt network, and advancing the university's mission. Not only are we poised to take on these priorities, but we have managed to advance them significantly. Let's start with the Pitt Alumni Career Network. 3 unique platforms designed to enhance digital engagement and create on-demand access to the Pitt network. Pitt Commons is our online networking community. Over the past year, we have leveraged this network to broker more than 12,000 connections between students and alumni for formal and informal mentorship. In addition, we've seen increasing interest in projects on Pitt Commons, an initiative that matches short-term opportunities provided by alumni with the talent of our recent alumni and students. Ask Pitt Alumni uses artificial intelligence to connect students and recent graduates seeking advice to the alumni who are most likely to answer. This is a great tool for those who need quick answers to pressing career questions or find asking for advice a bit daunting. Finally, we are extremely proud of our expanded presence on LinkedIn. We've managed to harness the power of this universal job hunting tool for our alumni. Over the past year, we added more than 1,000 new members and increased engagement 494%. Yes, you heard me correctly, 494%. Pitt alumni are extremely proud of their alma mater and they want to be helpful, and we owe the success of Career Network to their engagement. LinkedIn isn't the only network on which the PAA presence has grown. We stepped up our game on all of our social channels so we can more effectively share stories, opportunities, and ideas with alumni everywhere. You'll see on this chart how much our impressions have increased in the past 2 years. For those of you who aren't familiar with social media metrics, impressions are the total number of times content was viewed. In fiscal year 2021, the PAA topped 6 million impressions across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Our engagement has also grown because engagement shows how many actions were taken by the users, how many times they shared, commented on, or reacted to our content. It's a terrific indicator of their interest in our messaging. Our alumni have told us repeatedly that they welcome communications from us. So in addition to our robust offerings on social media, we continue to publish the Pitt Connection and Pitt Connection Live e-newsletters. So our alumni are aware of university news and upcoming events. And of course, we are always looking for new ways to share content that strengthens alumni opinions of Pitt, including university rankings, faculty achievement, alumni success stories, and a commitment to diversity and inclusion. In fact, we hope to make diversity and inclusion one of the centerpieces of next year for the PAA. Not only does it advance the university's mission of creating a welcoming community, but it also aligns with the work of our Equity and Social Justice Task Force. The board commissioned the task force to define equity and justice as it pertains to alumni relations and examine ways that the PAA can enhance operations and programs to be more inclusive and equitable. We have already begun making strides in several ways. Last year, we evolved the tradition of homecoming court. Instead of naming a king and queen, we now have a recognition program that more intentionally honors students for their contributions toward building a strong Pitt community and whose values are aligned with Pitt and the PAA. Now known as the Spirit of Pitt Award, we are looking forward to announcing this year's honorees at the homecoming game on Saturday. And if you attended the 101st Annual Lantern Night last month, you know that for the first time, we invited all first-year students to the Cathedral Lawn to celebrate the university's oldest tradition. Of course, we will continue to acknowledge that women who inspired Lantern Night by breaking down barriers and forging new paths at Pitt. But we also want to ensure that all students who seek a sense of community and belonging at our university can find one. The Equity and Social Justice Task Force worked tirelessly for 8 months to develop their outstanding report and recommendations. It was approved by the PAA Board of Directors and has been shared with the Chancellor, who I know commends the task force on their thoughtful approach in gathering information and structuring their comprehensive report. I intend to share this report with the Board of Trustees following the meeting, and I look forward to you reviewing it. The PAA staff will be working with key university partners to implement the task force's recommendations, and the PAA board will monitor progress throughout the year. Meanwhile, we will continue to support the university in its vow to create a more just and equitable campus, and we will offer opportunities for all members of our community to engage in meaningful ways. I've said it on many occasions, but I will say it again today. I am very proud to be part of a university that has very publicly taken action to promote social justice and anti-racism. The Pitt Alumni Association remains committed to connecting alumni to each other and to Pitt. We work diligently to maintain that commitment, under less than ideal circumstances these past 18 months. And we look forward to the new opportunities that await us as we begin to gather together once again. Thank you for this opportunity to present as part of the Board of Trustees public meeting. And I thank you for your unwavering support of the PAA.
Thank you so much, Val. Are there any questions for Val? Well, Val, the presentation showed the depth of the content that you were providing, and showed the data shows the impact that you're having, and the pictures show the smile and the fun that everybody's having. So it's greatly appreciated.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, we will now receive updates from the committees of the board, which held public meetings since our annual Board of Trustees meeting in June. As I am also the chairperson of the Governance and Nominating Committee, I will begin the reports today. At our September 20, 2021 public meeting, the Governance Committee voted to recommend 2 former trustees for the status of Emeritus Trustee of the Board of Trustees. This status is reserved for those who have made an exceptional contribution to the progress and welfare of the university and have served with distinction and devotion for many years. Once elected, the trustee serves for life. Included in the materials for this meeting is a resolution recommending the election of Robert M. Hernandez and Jack D. Smith to the status of Emeritus Trustee. Attached to the resolution are detailed biographies for each of these candidates, both who have devoted years of dedicated and extraordinary service to the university and the Board of Trustees. I would like to now call a vote on this resolution. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The resolution has been approved. I would like to extend my congratulations to Bob Hernandez and Jack Smith for receiving this honor, and we look forward to seeing you at the winter meetings of the board in 2022.
I
I'd
believe
like to now,
Trustee Lowe has a question.
okay, sorry, Larry. Larry, your hand's raised?
Nope, that was an accident. No questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, I would like to now call on Trustee Pete Verischetti for the report of the Property and Facilities Committee. Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairperson. On July 8th, 2021, the Property and Facilities Committee held a public meeting at which 3 proposals were reviewed and approved. The first one being the Bradford Campus Engineering and Information Technologies Building, which is designed to support the needs of the region, recruit and retain students, and ultimately ensure that they succeed. The new building will house new programs in mechanical engineering and energy engineering technology, the relocated Computer Information Systems and Technology program, an academic support space for increased student enrollment. The 39,500 gross square foot building is programmed to include engineering labs and shops, computer labs, the campus data center, and active large group classrooms. The committee approved this project in the amount of $24,500,000. Secondly, the Greensburg Campus Life Science Building. This building will support increased enrollment in academic nursing program offerings in Westmoreland County. The project is planned in response to the increased demand and rapidly changing needs in the healthcare industry. The two-story, 32,000 gross square foot building will have a corridor connection to the existing Smith Hall to create a unified life sciences complex. The building is programmed to include a nursing clinical lab, simulation suites, chemistry, biology, and computer labs, a nursing administration suite, and student lounge space. The project will seek leadership in engineering and environmental design certification and was approved by the committee in the amount of $19,280,000. The committee also approved the second of two major phases to upgrade Allen McGee Scaife Hall, home to the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. Phase 1, which is currently under construction, will provide 113,000 square feet in the West Wing addition. Phase 2 will modernize approximately 40,000 square feet on 4 floors on the west side of the existing building. The renovation will provide quality teaching and student spaces designed to attract top students, faculty, and staff. Teaching and support spaces will be reconfigured and consolidated, and modern lecture halls, laboratories, and group study spaces will be constructed to support team-based learning and student interaction. The project was approved in the amount of $30 million. Combined, these 3 projects are projected to generate 356 construction jobs and 142 support jobs for the state and regional economies. Mr. Vice Chairman, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Beresketti. I would now like to call on Trustee Robbie Loxbacher for the report of the Student Affairs Committee. Robbie?
Thank you, Vice Chairperson. The Student Affairs Committee held a special meeting on July 8th, 2021 to consider a resolution to increase the mandatory security and transportation fee. The security and transportation fee is assessed of all Pittsburgh campus students each semester. The $90 per semester fee has remained unchanged since 2007. The fee supports the campus shuttle system and the Fare Free Ride program with the Port Authority. The fee is insufficient to support these services, resulting in a growing deficit in the Transportation Reserve Account. The account currently has a deficit of $16.5 million, which has grown by an average of $2.5 million annually over the last 5 normal operating years. That's excluding the impacts of COVID-19. Further, the Port Authority has notified the university that the per ride cost for Pitt employees and students will be increased for the first time in nearly 6 years, contributing to even higher expected future deficits. A break-even analysis was conducted to identify the increase in student fee required to eliminate the annual deficit. 2 factors contribute to the deficit: insufficient revenue from student fees to support student-related expenses, and insufficient hard funding to support employee Port Authority ridership. The fee increase does not eliminate the current deficit, but it does help prevent it from continuing to grow by supporting student-related expenses. The combination of an increase in hard funding to support employee Port Authority ridership and the student fee increase is expected to eliminate the annual deficit for the Transportation Department. The Student Affairs Committee approved a fee increase of $40 from $90 per semester, from $90 per semester to $130 per semester for all students at the Pittsburgh campus beginning fiscal year 2022. Mr. Vice Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Loxbacher. Much appreciated. Next, we'll hear the Chancellor's report and the presentation of the annual report. But before Chancellor Gallagher begins his remarks, I'd like to note that earlier today at the information meeting of the board, the Chancellor discussed the new plan for Pitt with the board. It was an excellent discussion, and the board expresses support for the plan and the university and the Chancellor's approach moving forward. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank all of the members of the university community for their extensive and thoughtful work on the plan for Pitt. Now I'm happy to call upon Chancellor Gallagher for his report, as well as a presentation of the annual report. Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And thank you to all of our trustees for their contributions over the past busy couple weeks. I've seen all of you in committee meetings, and I know how hard you've been working, and I know it's been a very full session. So I want to thank all of you for that. I also want to wish everyone a very happy homecoming weekend, and in particular to all of our amazing Pitt alumni who have made it back, maybe for the first time in a couple of years, to campus to celebrate. You're a vital part of this university, and we're delighted to have this weekend where we celebrate you. And special thanks to Val, Njai, and the entire PAA. You saw how clearly they're working hard on behalf of alumni everywhere. And it's an exciting agenda, and exciting to see our Pitt alumni community coming to life in front of our very eyes. And finally, let me just echo the welcome to Majdi, Deborah, and Brian. We're so delighted to have you on this board. Can't wait to work with you. And let me just add, now that it's official, a very enthusiastic welcome back to our newly elected emeritus trustees. Now, I will say the September board meeting is the kind of year in review meeting, which means it looks back, and the purpose, of course, is to highlight the year that ended June 30th. But here we are in September, and I'm going to take a little bit of license to cover some information, even if it's after that cutoff date, because I know it falls into the general category of the state of the university and our campuses, and I know it's of great interest to the board. And in particular, let me focus on the health and safety issues, obviously the pandemic and COVID. And I'd like to highlight the enrollment situation that we just went through and now know kind of where we're about to land on enrollment. So let me start with vaccination efforts on campus. First, with recognizing that our campus was not neutral with regard to what we thought about vaccines. We've been very active in promoting vaccines across all of our Pitt community, but also our surrounding community, with large clinics hosted at the Peterson Events Center on all Pitt campuses and community settings around the city. In particular, those of you who are near campus today might notice the Pitt COVAX Center right on Fifth Avenue, right next to Nordenberg, right underneath Nordenberg Hall. It is open to the general public and not just to Pitt affiliates. Walk-ins are welcome, and appointments are also available. This is an excellent center. You can have any questions answered by knowledgeable health professional. So even if somebody's uncertain about getting vaccinated or has questions about the risk, this is a great place to find some evidence-based, judgment-free information to help you make that decision. And over 20,000 COVID vaccinations have been administered so far. I also want to note we are now also offering flu shots through our COVAX Center. Obviously, the flu kind of disappeared last year, but it didn't go away forever. Of course, that was an effect of sort of the worldwide shutdown and strong mitigation. And of course, we're all concerned about the idea of a twindemic with the seasonal flu outbreaks and COVID happening at the same time. So we think vaccination and mitigation, distancing and hygiene and social distance are still key cornerstones of any successful strategy to keep our community safe and to have a great academic year at the fullest extent possible. Let me talk a little bit about vaccination status in our Pittsburgh community. And this data is accurate as of Wednesday of this week. I looked at it this morning and it hasn't changed too much here. But you will see that the vaccination rate across all of our campuses is outstanding now, with 91% overall of the community now vaccinated, and confirming that by uploading their proof of vaccination information to the university. This is an outstanding response from our community. And we've been watching over the recent weeks as the percentage points move up across the board. And we know it's going higher as we're hearing, reports of folks going to our COVAX vaccination center to get vaccinated. The approach, of course, to our infection control program is depends on vaccination. If you're vaccinated, access to our buildings, which is, of course, what we control for a safety perspective, is allowed. If you're unvaccinated, you do have to provide a weekly negative COVID test to maintain access to the facilities. And anyone around campus realizes that this has been enforced and is happening across our campus. And it's really a central part of our strategy to make sure that our teaching environments, our residence halls, our communal dining facilities are maintained at very low risk. In terms of the breakdown, you can see that our faculty vaccination rate is very high, but I want to point out the teaching faculty, those in classrooms, that rate is actually 91% vaccinated. Overall staff, 89%, graduate students at 95%, and our undergraduates at 90%. And in all cases, our vaccination rates greatly exceed the vaccination rates in our surrounding counties. So, this is really perhaps one of the safest places to be in Western Pennsylvania is on a Pitt campus. Let me focus a little bit on the regional campuses where vaccination rates are a little bit lower, mirroring, by the way, lower vaccination rates in those surrounding counties, but we are pleased that they continue to climb. Faculty vaccination rates now are nearing 90%. Student populations, and this is affected by some of the commuting students, is lower, and also for staff, but we continue to work with those campus presidents on promoting and supporting vaccination on those campuses. But it does put a little bit more pressure on the testing program since the unvaccinated members would need to do the weekly test. On the Pittsburgh campus, which of course is the largest percentage of our student population and our employee population, the rates are very high, essentially 90% across the board. The staff are almost there at 89%, very pleased. And I want to thank everyone who's navigated the uncertainty of this late summer, early fall start, has figured out how to upload these cards, how to get the information they need to maintain access to our facilities. We understand that it's been turbulent, but I'm really delighted with the degree to which our community is, living up to their responsibility to make sure we all do our part to make sure Pitt is a safe place and a place where we can enjoy that great Pitt education in our classrooms and our research labs. And so we're very pleased by that. Let me show you a little bit of some data showing case reporting so we can actually look at what's happening from an infection perspective. We, of course, have multiple testing programs. You heard about the one for unvaccinated, but we also have a symptomatic testing program for anyone displaying symptoms, illness. And we do some sampling of the overall population. The rates have been quite modest. If you recall last year, what would happen is following an event like student arrival, we'd see an outbreak and then it would go up, moderate. We'd have to do very strong mitigation, bring it down. On both the faculty, staff, and the student side, we have seen essentially a very steady and fairly low rate of infection, averaging about 8 positive cases per day for students and about 3 or so for faculty and staff. And somewhat quite independent, even of this increase in testing or of increases in the surrounding community. So none of the rapid increases, outbreak-like behavior that we saw last year. And again, that's a combination of the immunity from vaccines and natural immunity in our population, coupled with the fact that inside our buildings, we still have universal masking, compliance, and people are taking care. So we're also seeing, much like our hospital systems are reporting, because our, those that do get infected are generally displaying very mild cases. It may not feel that way if you are one of those, but medically speaking, these are mild cases not requiring hospitalization. That has been our experience as well. And that, of course, is a great comfort. We can't stop 100% of all infections, but we don't want people getting gravely ill. So, I think our thoughts about this as we go is sort of cautious optimism. Obviously, the virus mutations obviously add a new dynamic. The dynamics of outbreaks around us and the degree of community spread in our surrounding neighborhoods continues to be something that we have to be attentive to. The university is not in a bubble, but everyone is doing their part. Even though it's not easy. And by and large, the activities on campus have resumed in a way much closer to what we expected and much different from last year when they were severely affected and we were doing a lot of remote classrooms. So we continue to be optimistic, but one thing to keep in mind is the virus is not going away. We're going to be coexisting with this in the long run. So one of the questions that we continue to work on with the university community is, how do we modify these controls, these measures in a long-term way so that, this becomes built into the fabric of the university in a way that minimizes the disruption and maximizes the quality of our education and research and services. Now, let me turn a little bit to another story. This is a very good news story, but it was a point of great concern and uncertainty last year when the pandemic started, and that's what would happen to enrollment and student demand. And what I'm going to tell you is kind of a split story. And the numbers I'm showing you right now are still preliminary. They're from this month, but we finalized that at the end of September, on September 29th, so-called census date. So these are still unofficial, but I don't expect them to change. On the graduate student side, something we noted last year was an area that was not keeping up, that we had seen some declines in graduate and professional student enrollment. Our graduate student enrollment is recovering and really starting to gain some momentum. So across the board, we're seeing increasing numbers. Our doctoral student programs are essentially flat, the PhD programs. And remember, we retained some PhD students in some of those programs because of the interruption in their scholarship and employment markets during the pandemic. So, but from a new student side, that's essentially flat. All other categories are up, including international, which is very encouraging because of all the disruption that was happening on international travel and impacting enrollment. So we're very pleased that that's starting to turn around. And this is consistent with our objective as a university to really grow and strengthen both the size, but also the quality reputation of our graduate and professional programs. On the undergraduate side, there's a very consistent trend that is coming up, and that is that the Pittsburgh campus enrollment is growing extremely strongly. I'll cover this a little bit more detail. We broke basically all records this year. The regional campuses have sort of resumed a longstanding trend with enrollment declines. This is national, and it's certainly a state trend that these smaller non-selective campuses have been seeing declining admissions. And what's interesting is despite all of the changes in the admissions world in the last year during the pandemic, no visits, test optional, this trend seems to be robust, and it's something that we will continue to work on. Let me give a quick breakdown on looking at the first time enrollment trends on the Pittsburgh compared to the regional campuses. And you'll see that, our enrollment of new students principally comes from, first years coming out of high school and transfer and other students coming in. And there's a shaded difference there that shows the composition of that for the university. We are increasingly focused on enhancing our transfer admissions. We think that's an important part of the landscape. And you will see some modest increases there on the Pittsburgh campus already as a result of those efforts. But this overall trend of double-digit growth on the Pittsburgh campus as compared to not quite double-digit decline on the regional campuses over this 3-year period continues. And of course, the pandemic sat in the middle of that, which we've talked about. It wasn't clear at the beginning of the pandemic whether or not there would be a shock to admissions. And it turns out, while students' lives were certainly upended and how you applied and how you were admitted to college changed, the overall trend patterns for the University of Pittsburgh have been quite stable. Let me talk a little bit about the first-time enrollment, and I talked about the record setting. Our undergraduate class was historic this year. It was our largest class, and in pretty much every category, you'll see dramatic increases. And because the numbers were up, there's no trade-offs on many of these. So more Pennsylvania students up almost 15%, non-resident up about 14%. International students are up, minority, underrepresented minority, Black, Latinx, Pell, and of course, the achievement of our students, their academic preparedness as assessed was also indicated up as well. One just note here, because I know this was an important discussion in our Academic Affairs and Libraries Committee, is that, many universities, including Pitt, implemented test optional admissions this year. And about half of our students were admitted without supplying a standardized test. But we have no evidence that these students are anything other than highly qualified. But with that missing data, we are obviously closely tracking this and working to make sure that their likelihood to succeed at Pitt is just as great as it always was. So an important issue. I want to turn a little bit to the story again, the records here are shown here. These are all-time records now for the university. We're very pleased by that. I do want to talk a little bit about the impact of the university on Pennsylvania. One of our roles, and this is clear in our strategic plan, is not only to impact the lives of the students who go to Pitt, but to enhance the regional strength of Western Pennsylvania. Even if you don't attend the University of Pittsburgh, the region expects to benefit from the presence of a leading research university. And it happens in several ways. One, of course, is the talent, those graduates coming out of Pitt and deciding where they're going to start their careers, start their business, start their families and so forth. Nearly 6 out of every 10 first-year students, first of all, is a Pennsylvania student. We recruit very heavily from Western Pennsylvania. That has continued. But now we're looking at graduates, and what's really exciting is the increasing trend of those who graduate from the University of Pittsburgh staying in the region to work. That really reflects the fact that there's growing opportunity in the region, and that the Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania region becomes a more and more attractive place to stay and to carry your career. So I'm going to channel one of our trustees here, Rich Fitzgerald, our county executive, who has been trumpeting this great news, showing for the first time in 6 decades a reversal in Allegheny County of population decline. Following the collapse of the large manufacturing and steel industries that Pittsburgh is so famous for, transitioning to this sort of technology eds and meds economy. We've talked about it for a long time, but now you see the real effect where there's real job growth, real population growth in the county. And this is really quite rare. Demographers will tell you it's quite unusual for a strong trend like that, particularly against a backdrop of continued declines in other areas, to be reversed. And I really think that the universities, which are net attractors and magnets of great talent, play a role here, because we're attracting all of these talented students and faculty to the region. And that means as the opportunities present themselves, they want to stay here to enjoy the great quality of life here in Western Pennsylvania. So it really is true that with Pitt, Pennsylvania wins. And here we see some very tangible evidence of that. I also want to talk a little bit about the economic impact of the university, because it's very considerable. You know, we drive as a university an enormous amount of economic activity, not only in Allegheny County and in the counties where our campuses are located, but really across the whole state. The regional campuses alone account for more than $300 million of statewide economic impact. That's taking the Oakland campus off the table. And for the regionals, $15 million in state and local tax revenue and thousands of jobs. And while these regions have seen steady population decline and certainly had their challenges economically, there is no question that the presence of the regional campuses of the University of Pittsburgh have strongly mitigated that and created real opportunity. And so it just points out, you know, that we really do have this impact. On the broader overall university, with the combined power of all 5 campuses, you see that we really are one of the great economic engines for the state of Pennsylvania. $184 million in state and local tax revenue, more than 37,000 jobs supported, over $4 billion of direct economic impact to the region. And then if you think about the hundreds of thousands of Pitt alumni who are staying here, working here, and our Commonwealth residents and all their collective investment, plus the attractiveness for any industry wanting to consider moving into the region. So as you look at the conditions for economic growth, certainly one of the first things a CEO will look at in considering where to expand or grow or carry out a new research or innovate a new company is, can they secure the talent, and is there the collaboration to advance those purposes? Pitt plays an enormous role there, and we included a quote from David Burritt, the president and CEO of U.S. Steel, as they look at some advanced R&D possibilities about, you know, clean steel and other types of opportunities. They recognize that a global research university like Pitt is a game changer. So, you know, our role to the state, our accountability to state is an important part. We are, of course, state supported as part of the state-related system of the Commonwealth. Our Commonwealth appropriation is an important part of our support to Pennsylvania students so that they have the opportunity to go to a great flagship university like Pitt and stay in state. Our general appropriation, which is you know, the majority of this, $152 million last year, is essentially pass-through funding to students. It directly goes to create the reduced state tuition revenue, in-state tuition cost for those students. And I should point out that in addition to the $152 million that the Commonwealth provides, Pitt itself augments that amount by another $117 million for the same purpose, to provide a lower in-state discount for Pennsylvania students. And that's how Pennsylvania students access that lower in-state rate. So I just want to thank the General Assembly for passing our appropriation in this very tumultuous post-COVID era. Their support is noted and appreciated by the university community. And I know that our students and our families, with all that they've had to attend to in their own lives, appreciate the support of the Commonwealth and our partnership with the Commonwealth. It's not easy to do this. I know there's competing interest. We have been enjoying one of the longer trends in sustained year-to-year growth since 2012 in support for Pitt. It's always risky, and it's still, as great as that trend has been, it's still, when you do inflation correction, we still have not met the levels of support that were there from 2011. So we still have some work to do there, but I wanted to share that that news. In turning to support for students, it would also, you know, the state appropriation plays a key role, but also direct financial aid support from the university plays an increasing role. And I wanted to highlight our Pitt Success program, which includes both a Pell Match program, a really novel program nationally, but also additional support to cap the amount of unmet need met by our students. This program is starting to really have a dramatic impact. We launched this under Provost Cudd's leadership in 2019. Pell eligible students at Pitt, we noticed took on 24% less debt in the following year. So we're attracting more Pell eligible students to Pitt campus. They're coming here and not staying away because of concerns about affordability. We're becoming more accessible. Debt is going down, and we're seeing increases in retention, year-to-year retention, closing that gap in retention between Pell and non-Pell eligible students. A university degree is one of the greatest tools you can have to enhance your own personal social mobility and well-being. This is how you increase your lifetime earnings, improve your standard of living, your quality of life, your happiness. We know that that's the case. And we're very proud that we can lower the barriers to that passport to a stronger life for all of our graduates, particularly here in this region we call home. Our regional campuses, again, you're seeing some of the numbers come down, but that's mapping some of the trend that we just talked about previously. And so that's overlaid there. And again, some of the increase on the Pittsburgh campus is a result of that. But this is one of the single biggest areas of investment that the university has made. So when we turn to our budget and look at the university's budget from a revenue perspective, you will see that tuition revenue, research grants went up, interestingly, largely unaffected by the pandemic. And net tuition revenue went down a little bit, which might surprise folks, but really this is a result of the fact that our largest area of increase was in financial aid, which gets netted out of that. So that was a $12 million increase from the prior year. With regard to the COVID impact, you might be looking there saying, well, I don't see much difference between the fiscal year 19 and 20 numbers. This chart is masking what was a very difficult year, but I just want to showcase it. We did not have to cut program staff, no furloughs, no layoffs, even though we were strongly affected in the last year. That was commendable, but it wasn't without pain. And I want to point out, salaries for faculty and staff have been held flat last year. We did have a voluntary early retirement program to those who met certain criteria. It was accepted by about 450 staff and about a little over 50 faculty members. We froze non-essential hiring and travel and procurement. And then on top of that, our schools and other operating units took a budget-related cut of 5% to deal with COVID. Those steps collectively freed up about $44 million to cover a lot of the expenses. So when you combine it with the multiple rounds of federal COVID relief, we were largely able to support expenditures like the technology for the Flex at Pitt, our PPE, our masking, our COVID testing, our expansion of student housing options, all the things we had to do last year without incurring a long-term negative impact to the budget. So we're recovering this year. I wouldn't say this is a normal year, and I'll talk about that a little bit, but we're starting our recovery from a relatively good position. Now, let me move, let me make a mention on the revenue side as well. I know there's been a lot of news coverage on endowments and distributions. The market has obviously been very strong recently. Our endowment benefits from that. That's good news because, setting aside donor restricted distributions, the remaining distribution is for student financial aid. That's what our endowment is for. And so we're getting some boost for that from there. And I should also note auxiliaries, our housing and other auxiliary services are down last year, but they are recovering quickly as we resume a somewhat more normal operations this year. Let me turn to the expense side of the budget. It's a very similar looking bar graph. Again, it looks quite stable year to year. You'll see a slight uptick on the compensation, which is our largest expense category. We're a people-powered organization. That's due to the fact that the early retirement program did have some incentive payments that were paid out last year. We will start to realize savings in future years as that those payments roll off. And so, again, a fairly good position, all things considered, for the university in a very tumultuous period. Let me turn to voluntary support to the university, or philanthropy. Again, another area we expected great disruption during last year in the midst of the pandemic. But the $162 million that was given to Pitt last year is an increase over the prior year. And we are very optimistic that the philanthropic position of the university is actually not only recovering, but beginning to have a very strong foundation for future growth. The total number of donors at 44,000 is the highest number of donors on record for the University of Pittsburgh. Giving by alumni, and you heard this in Val Njai's presentation, our alumni engagement, but our alumni giving is tracking this up 26% over the prior year. That's the highest level since 2018. Significant growth in giving from young alumni. Our gold donors, which stands for graduates of the last decade. That category of young or recent graduates has grown 40% over the past 5 years. And then alumni at the $100,000 and up giving level is up 25%. So we're excited about those indicators. They show a very strong level of support and growth for the university. Our PittDev giving, which is really about participation and engagement, continues to set records. We're seeing success from this engagement part of this, and finding ways for our alumni, people who care about Pitt, to follow and become involved. I also note another bright spot was planned gifts. The $38.5 million, that was the highest amount in planned gifts since 2018. So members of our community are choosing Pitt as a key place to represent their legacy, something that we are honored by, touched by, and this makes sense. Universities endure in a way that very few institutions do, and they give back to their communities and through the lives of the students there in such a direct way. So we're very pleased by that. Let me touch quickly, just a reminder. In my report last year, we looked back at using the last plan for Pitt. At the last June meeting, we rolled out the new framework for our new strategic plan. It's organized according to our, who we are, what we do, and the impact we have, our people, our programs, and our purpose. This framing is now being put to use. The way this comes to life, if you will, is through the action plan under the framework. And so there's activities now planning various types of specific activities, initiatives, and projects that will advance some of the goals laid out in the plan for Pitt. This is an activity that engages all of the university. We've incorporated it into our ongoing budget and planning process for the university so that it's not standing alone, but integrated with how we plan and prioritize our resources and our actions for the coming year. And for the members of this Board of Trustees, again, I want to thank you for your support for this planning process, and to reiterate my commitment to work with you as this fleshes out so we can identify and make sure that you hold us accountable for achieving those important goals for the university, advancing our preeminence, our excellence, the quality and reach, the affordability, and the environment for which our students and our scholars can thrive. That's what we're here for, after all. Let me use this framework a little bit to showcase some of the highlights from the past year, starting with our people. I want to start, of course, with our students. Their accomplishments continue to really inspire us all and really set the pace, if you will. They continue to earn some of the most prestigious academic honors that are available. A few just to highlight: Madeline Fox, who was a 2021 Honors College graduate, was awarded a 2021 Marshall Scholarship. This will support her graduate studies at the University of York in England, where she's pursuing a Master of Arts in Medieval Literature and Languages. Very exciting. Mark Farino, majoring in physics and mathematics and minoring in French, is one of 2 Goldwater scholarships, one of the top honors for students in the natural sciences, mathematics, and engineering. Mark, and near and dear to my heart, is going to continue to study graduate studies in physics. Way to go, Mark. Asher Hancock is majoring in mechanical engineering and minoring in computer science and mathematics. And he's looking to pursue a doctoral degree in aerospace engineering. And so these students extend really a long trend of Pitt's success in competing very well for some of the most prestigious national awards. On the Fulbright side, we've told this story many times. The Chronicle of Higher Education has named Pitt as a top producer of Fulbright scholars now for a decade. Once again, that's true. We set a new record last year with 15 Pitt graduates named Fulbright scholars. This is a remarkable track record. This is one of the best known international awards, and it really reflects our commitment to global engagement and looking at the kind of life-changing opportunities for our students. Really the best measure of a university is through the accomplishments of the people who went there. And by these measures, Pitt is doing exceptionally well. And we now have all these new global ambassadors pursuing their studies around the world. On the alumni front, it is homecoming weekend. I have to give a shout out to two alumni who did remarkable things. Jim Covert, member of this board. Jim, we were all going to wear gold jackets in your honor today, but I don't have one. How shocking is that? Jim was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame this August. He's the 9th Pitt football player so enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I just want to point out for those of you not tracking, that ties us with 5th most with the University of Miami, Florida. And for those of you who care, that puts us ahead of Alabama. So Jimbo, we're very proud of you and what you've accomplished. And thanks for representing Pitt so well. And thanks for that amazing shout out to Pitt during your acceptance speech. Vjosa Osmani is a native of Kosovo and a graduate of our School of Law. Let me clarify my focus here so I'm not a little blurry. There you go. She was appointed the president of Kosovo by the nation's 120-seat parliament in April of this year. So congratulations to her, and what a remarkable achievement. Here's a head of state. And I was going to make a comment about how rare it is to see a Pitt Panther sitting alongside a head of state, but somebody then showed me a picture of Larry Fitzgerald sitting next to Joe Biden. So there you go. Never underestimate Pitt alumni. And so our congratulations to both of those. On the faculty side, numerous members of our faculty also earned top honors in their fields over the past year. One of the real highlights for any faculty member is election into their respective national academies. This is a rare and extremely prestigious recognition by your peers, and it showcases the depth and breadth of their work and that they're engaged in. So I want to acknowledge Kirk Savage, a professor on the history of art and architecture. He was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He's a renowned expert on public monuments, has authored multiple books, including Monument Wars, which explores the transformation of the memorial landscape at the National Mall in Washington. Anna Balazs from our Swanson School of Engineering was elected to the National Academy of Sciences. She's a renowned theoretician and computational modeler looking at polymers and other materials in a field known as soft robotics, which is really what it sounds like. Robots using soft materials that can assemble and form much like living organisms perform. So Anna is actually reshaping and growing a field that would have seemed like science fiction just a few years ago. I'm very proud of this accomplishment. Anna was on my thesis advisory committee when I was a graduate student here at Pitt. So way to go, Anna. Torin Finkel and Amy Wagner were both elected to the National Academy of Medicine. Torin is a professor of cardiology. He directs our Pitt Aging Institute. His work centers on the physiological factors that alter the rate of aging, something we can all appreciate. And his long-term goal is nothing short of uncovering the molecular basis of aging and age-related diseases. So one of the most profound challenges we face in an aging society and globe. Amy Wagner is a professor of physical medicine and rehabilitation, also a professor of neuroscience, and she uses biomarkers and statistical modeling to predict how well patients will recover from a brain injury and to actually guide the clinical decisions along the way. It's a strategy that she calls personalized rehabilitation medicine. So we're delighted that these outstanding members of our own faculty are getting the recognition at the very highest levels of their fields. So our congratulations to all of them. We also welcomed 4 new deans to our academic leadership this last year. 2 you've been introduced to before, Carissa Slaughterback, Dean of our Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, and Maureen Litchfield, the Dean of the Graduate School of Public Health. They've been working hard. They don't feel like new timers, first timers anymore. Our most recent arrivals over the summer include Nicola Foote, who's the new Dean of our Honors University Honors College, and Carla Penzella, our Dean of Students. And I know that many of you got a chance to meet both of them in various committee meetings earlier this week. So I want to extend an official welcome to them in front of the board to our Pitt community, where they're already making a contribution and contributing to our success. One of the things we do to support faculty and staff is to provide the resources and support for them to move into new areas. And I wanted to showcase our Pitt Momentum Funds program, which is one of our evolving internal support programs that we're very excited about. So this is a program that, under the leadership of Rob Rutenbar, our Senior Vice Chancellor for Research, and Senior Vice Chancellor and Provost Ann Cudd, have kind of restructured some existing programs, expanded them, and created a tiered program for developing team projects across the university. So it's supported by 3 types of grant mechanisms: seed grants, which support innovative scholarship by an individual or small group; teaming grants, which support the early stage planning and capacity building for larger projects; and scaling grants, which prepare the research teams to compete for significant external funding that address large, complex problems. So this is kind of our angel funding for research. And I want to highlight some examples from this. These are 2 recipients of our $400,000 scaling grants. Liz Miller from the Medical School's Department of Pediatrics is leading a team that includes representation from the School of Social Work, Pitt Public Health, and from our other community organizations. They are conducting urgent research on how the COVID-19 pandemic is disproportionately impacting marginalized communities. And one of their goals is to identify strategies to promote vaccine trustworthiness at multiple levels, from healthcare and research institutions right down to the community level. And anyone reading a paper these days will recognize how vitally important this task is. Esohe Osai from the School of Education is leading an interdisciplinary team of experts from our departments of psychology and English, and from our Learning, Research, and Development Center. And Esohe's team is addressing the fact that Black youth are often excluded from opportunities to access higher education, something we were talking about earlier. So they're aiming to make a difference by using a Justice Scholars Institute, which will offer educational programming, college preparation workshops, justice-focused youth development opportunities, and training opportunities in justice-focused research. So 2 pioneers working on timely and critical issues, and we wish them success. But I also wanted to show you an example of how some of these internal grant programs are generating external funding success. So here, in addition to the seed funding, we also are running support sort of boot camps, which are training programs with a focus on energizing and enhancing our faculty's success rate in seeking external funding. Here are some of our winners here who are enjoying great success. So both Corey Richard Zawacki and Fabrizio Ambrosio have won significant external support following their participation in our big proposal boot camp, and a project led by Dan Ding, supported by our general proposal support, was recently awarded an Engineering Rehabilitation Center grant from HHS. And I just want to note, not that we're competitive or anything, they displaced Georgia Tech, which had long held that funding for that center. So This kind of success in this early phases of this program really bodes well for our future. This is really how we grow the opportunities for the resources and the collaborative support for our faculty to tackle bigger and bigger challenges. A key part of our strategic plan. Another area of big science, high impact science, is vaccine research. The board knows we've been very active in numerous lines of research supporting the pandemic that cuts across all of our schools, from education, social work to medicine, and of course, our Center for Vaccine Research. There are numerous clinical trials like the ones on this slide that are underway now or have been completed and have affected the protocols for treatment for COVID. And so I'm delighted that in the midst of this global health crisis, Pitt continues to lead the way, working in collaboration with our partnership at UPMC to conduct and evaluate new treatments, new therapies that can have an effect. What all of this means from the research side is really some success. We topped over $900 million in overall research grants and contract support in our sponsored research. That's a new record for the University of Pittsburgh. We are now knocking on the door of the $1 billion club, which is really elite company among public research institutions. We continue to rank in the top 10 in NIH funding and the top 15 in NSF support. And again, the momentum continues very strong on the research side. The other way we support our community is through our facilities and built infrastructure. This has been an eventful year. We were talking about pausing projects at the start of the pandemic, but they've all been resumed. And as you'll see, the campus is a busy place. I just wanted to note a couple of things that have come to fruition the past year and some that are underway across the campuses. But the campus master plan emerged from the original plan for Pitt. It was one of our implementation plans. It was a long-range, big picture vision of what this campus could look like in the coming decades. It became the basis for what's called the institutional master plan, which is a formal and legally binding document that is submitted and approved by the city of Pittsburgh. And this is a necessary step because it provides the details related to city regulations, including zoning issues like building height, parking, urban design, and it also reflects the input and participation of the neighborhoods that are impacted by what we're doing. So we met major milestones this year with the endorsement of our institutional master plan by City Council and the signature by the mayor this summer. So I want to thank everyone from the facilities team to our community teams who made that happen, but that's a key step. With regard to specific projects, for those of you on campus, if you cross Bigelow, you'll see one of them. The reimagined Bigelow Boulevard between the 5th and Forbes Avenue was completed during the pandemic. This was a close partnership with the city, which owns Bigelow Boulevard. It created a brand new streetscape to improve safety, created separated paths for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. And it really updated the attractiveness and usefulness of what is one of the main thoroughfares through the middle of our campus. There was a lot of action under the road, as well as a lot of our key infrastructure was replaced and updated underneath Bigelow. So a real, not only the front door, but the road in front of the front door was kind of redone this year. The Peterson Sports Complex, which is where our basketball, that's the other Peterson, the baseball, lacrosse, and soccer and softball teams use this facility. It was recently expanded. It's really the first project of the Victory Heights program of projects designed to revitalize our athletics complex up on the top of the hill. And really now just signals the beginning of the start of the transformation of the student athlete experience here at Pitt. I encourage our trustees to visit this remarkable facility, and I hope you'll get a lot of chance because already our baseball and soccer and softball teams are enjoying a lot of success. Lacrosse will be playing at the Highmark Field this year, but they have offices and other facilities in this location. And on the medical school side, you will see an expansion of the Alan McGee Scaife Hall. So the steel structure is up on what is called the West Wing. This is the portion of the building which predominantly houses our teaching and instructional areas for medical students. So it's critically important. This was one of the very first projects to receive a waiver from Governor Wolf to resume construction early in the pandemic. It's an extremely high priority for the university. We need to modernize the spaces for our medical students so that we can continue to train the best and brightest to be some of the top medical practitioners in their field. So this is really equivalent in terms of size to a new medical education building, even though it's attached to some existing facilities and sits in the heart of the hospital complex in Oakland. So another key step. Another one that you will see on campus underway, right now it's underway as a demolition of some existing facilities, but it's laying the table for our new recreation and wellness center for all of our students, faculty, and staff. So this, the site is now being cleared of the former LRDC building and the O'Hara parking garage. And this expansive and central facility will be a major part of the student spirit experience. It lies in the middle of our campus. As Kenyon Bonner will tell you, it's more than a building. It's an idea, it's a program, it's a point of connection. It's really the center, it's at the geographic center of our campus. It connects our upper and lower campus. It activates the hillside. It really is going to be one of the most transformative steps on our campus in a long time. And we're very excited to see this project now beginning to unfold and take shape. It's also been active on our regional campuses. We broke ground this summer on 2 regional campus projects, an engineering and information technologies building in Bradford, which will house 2 new programs, mechanical engineering technology and energy engineering technology. These are the first 4-year engineering degrees on that campus. And the new 2-story life sciences building on the Greensburg campus will address the rapidly increasing demand for nursing education in Westmoreland County. It will house a clinical nursing lab, simulation suites, chemistry and biology labs, and support space. That campus launched that 4-year nursing program in 2017. Its first cohort of students just graduated this past May, so you can see the rapid signs of growth there. So, on the construction and facilities side, it has been a very active year. And I just want to note this activity also has economic impact by creating construction and support jobs, well over 1,000, and fueling construction related expenses and supporting that. So I will also note that almost all of these jobs are union jobs, something vitally important to the region, and something that we appreciate our partnership with our trade unions here in the region. Let me also turn to another building related issue, but it's really bigger than that. It's energy usage. It's a key part of addressing our goals to be a carbon neutral campus. We continue to increase and improve our facilities, but we're building in through this process requirements for more efficiency and more sustainability in these projects. So last year we added our 15th LEED certified building with the renovation of the Graduate School of Public Health, which earned LEED Silver. Pitt now has a total of over 1 million square feet of LEED certified space. And we have more than a dozen green building certifications in the works currently. We remain on track to meet our goals to reduce energy use intensity and greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030, with the goal of reaching carbon neutrality for the university by 2037. So energy consumption increased about 1% between 21 and fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 20, predominantly related to the pandemic requirements on ventilation. So it shows you that the modification of the ventilation systems to maximize indoor air quality did have a environmental premium, but it was not too large. With our campus square footage increasing in recent years, the campus-wide energy use intensity has gone down more than 10%, which is what allowed us to make these reductions, even though our footprint is growing. So my thanks to the facilities team. Now, there are some exciting developments that are not on our campus, but things that we are related to. And I want to highlight one. Pitt received one of the largest gifts in its history in fiscal year 21, a $25 million gift from the Henry L. Hillman Foundation in support of our life sciences corridor. This is part of a years-long effort to capitalize and expand a Pittsburgh-based presence in research and innovation in advanced health sciences, areas like immunotherapy, biomanufacturing, personalized medicine, and vision restoration. Very much in line with our partners at UPMC, this effort would transform the region of Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania, making us one of the life science clusters of the country. The gift specifically supported key aspects of this effort, including strategic planning, launching a startup business accelerator, and supported efforts that will be part of the Vision and Rehabilitation Hospital that Mercy's building alongside Mercy to expand some of our research and clinical facilities in vision and low vision healthcare. So those of you who want to see that off-campus activity can see that happening along Boulevard of the Allies. And really, I think predicting what is likely to be a vibrant life science corridor along the Monongahela River, running from downtown up through Hazelwood Green. So we're very excited about that and looking forward to that momentum continuing to build. Another area of activity where the university made a big contribution was, how do we make a difference in the problems tackling the world? And look, a great university has to be focused on addressing the great challenges of the day. So in the past, this spring, we teamed up with Carnegie Mellon University by launching a first-time collaborative center called a Collaboratory Against Hate. This is a unique approach which is holistic. It engages scholars in disciplines such as law, social science, computer science, data science, to study the concept of extremist hate, to understand how it operates. And the goal of the center is to understand the creation and the proliferation of these kind of hate, and whether it's in online or happening in real life, and to develop meaningful interventions against the spread of extremist hate and its consequences. This was originally formed in response to the Tree of Life massacre, but the center has rapidly attracted faculty members with expertise in very diverse areas like social media, information technology, addiction, and adolescent medicine. This is just a perfect example of how a university can respond to a pressing social need and changes in social needs to fulfill its mission to make the world better through knowledge and the application of that knowledge to society. So my thanks to Kathy Blee, who co-leads this on the Pitt side with her colleague from CMU, and to all of those who have joined in and partnered in the new collaboratory. So in the past year and a half, so many things have changed about day-to-day work, but our purpose has never changed. So, I just want to point out some more of these impacts of the university. Last year, our Small Business Development Center, so-called SBDC, was named the #1 such center in the United States, more than 1,000 of those across the country. Its mission is to grow the economy of Western Pennsylvania by giving entrepreneurs the education, information, and tools they need to build strong businesses. And that recognition shows that our SBDC has accomplished a lot, helping local clients record $16 million in business capital formation last year and supporting nearly 3,500 regional jobs. Our SBDC helped pivot entrepreneurs to handle the pandemic, to help them take care of employees getting through the shutdown, and to retool so that as we begin to recover, they can take advantage and become vibrant, growing companies again. Altogether, it's estimated that Pitt injected about $331 million into Pennsylvania's economy since the onset of the pandemic and generated $24 million in state and local taxes. So it just goes to show our mission persists even in the midst of great disruption. And I just want to give a shout out to our Institute for Entrepreneurial Excellence, our SBDC, Bob Stein, and the entire team there. And one reminder that I have for our community and for our students as we begin the new academic year, as tumultuous as it is, as uncertain as it can feel, these are the times that universities were actually made for. We're here after all to solve the hard problems. And more importantly, to be part of the solutions to those hard problems. And that doesn't mean we're immune to the challenges that society faces. We're not isolated from society. We're in the middle of it, just like everybody. But the members of this community at their very best, and I've seen them at their very best this year, don't wring their hands and give up. They have a very expansive vision for what a university is, what a community is, and they're very quick to reach out, join with others, and expand their efforts to make this a better place. So if we've learned anything over the past year, I think it's that we all need more problem solvers. And that's why Pitt is here, and that's why we're all so proud to be part of this amazing institution. On that note, let me conclude my report. Thank you for your attention, and hail to Pitt.
Thank you so much, Pat. I'd like to thank you for an incredibly thoughtful and thorough presentation. It's certainly great to see the success of the students, the alumni, and the faculty. Their impact's the ultimate achievement, right, in the pursuit of excellence. So it's also great to hear of the university's impact in not just our region, but well beyond. I'd also like to congratulate once again Bob Hernandez and Jack Smith on being elected as Emeritus trustees. And Pat, thank you and your leadership team, and also the entire university workforce for the incredible efforts that you all have had in guiding this university through the continued challenges we're facing due to COVID and everything else. So now, are there any additional new business to become before the board today? Okay, hearing none, thank you so much. This meeting is now adjourned. Everybody have a great homecoming weekend, and as Pat said, hail Pitt.
Thanks, Lou.
Hail to Pitt.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hail to Pitt.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt.